Hello, everyone. It is I. What are you doing here? But I had to do the bit. I just had to do the bit. Plus, umbrellas. Look at her. She's a precious little umbrella. Hello, everyone. It is I, Dark Symphony 777, with another fan fiction review. A very special fan fiction review. As always, link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts to the story, and finally, this is my opinion. My opinion is not indicative for everyone in the world, so please respect that. So, long ago, I did a Steven Universe fanfiction called The Stranger and Me. I really liked that story, and I still do. I actually finished reading it not too last night as of this recording. But this is actually going to be a super long video regarding that fic, because this is going to be, I guess you could say, my 300 subscriber special, sort of, kind of. I don't really know. Anyway, before I actually get into the video, I want to thank everyone for watching the video, whether you only watched a specific video of like something you happen to be a fan of, like Steven Universe or Mario or Yu-Gi-Oh or whatever you want, or watching any of my or many of my videos. And I thank everyone, because when I started this, I was never expecting to actually get 300 subscribers. I wasn't. I mean, it's a small potato to compare to someone big, like just anyone you could think of. But the fact that I got 300 is just astounding. It's really puts into perspective a lot of what's going on, especially when I wasn't expecting a lot out of this channel. I was just expecting, just to have a relaxing time talking about something I love. And how thanks to this channel, I found someone I might care about. I really do genuinely care about. I started a business, which is something I didn't think would ever come from this channel, of just a hobby channel, of all things. But yeah, I started my own business, and I want to thank everyone from the bottom of my heart. So, what does any of this have to do with Steven Universe? Well, this is going to be a very long video. I'm not going to lie. This is, in essence, going to be a two-part video, but I'm going to be doing both parts at once. I'm actually going to be splicing both parts together. This is going to be part one. I'm going to record part two when I finish the other half of that story, the other fic, and review that. But long story short, several years ago, I did a review of Stanger and Me. However, I wanted to re-review it. This is not going to take too long, because most of what I said in my first review, go check that out when you get the chance, actually still applies here. I really love the plot. I really love the characters. I really love the pacing and the story, and the story of these two beings coming together, especially at the end where Jade sacrifices herself to save Connie. It's still really well done. But when it came to recommending it, I had to side on very caution, because of the simple fact that as of when I did that video, the sequel, The Stranger I Am, was not finished. And I was going under the assumption that it would never be finished. Usually when it comes to fanfiction, I usually operate on the assumption that fanfictions assume they're never finished until they're actually finished. So that's just a mindset that I have. Everyone's going to have a different mindset of everything. But that's just how I view things. And Stranger I Am, I don't think at the time, wasn't really updated in a long time. So when I recommended The Stranger and Me, I did that under the presumption that I was reviewing it by itself and not in any way connected with Stranger I Am or Stranger We Become, because I found out he just started the last story of the trilogy, and that prevented me from putting it into Better Off Alone tier. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go back, read this first story, not only to gauge myself on Stranger I Am, because I know Stranger I Am takes place literally a week in universe after the events of Stranger and Me. So they're more or less just two stories side by side. But also to reevaluate to see if Stranger in Me is a Better Off Alone tier story. Now, I'm not going to answer that part until I talk about Stranger and Me, because it's going to be important. Trust me, there's a very specific reason I want to save it for then. But as it stands right now, reading through Stranger and Me the second time, with the idea of the fact that the second story is complete, and therefore I got to see it from a different perspective, especially reading it the second time, really had me underestimate how well done Connie and Jade's relationship was. And keep in mind, in my review of that story, I said Connie and Jade's relationship was really well done. I had no fault in that. But even then, I underestimated exactly how good it was until the second read through, with like all the nuance, all the very nice touches, especially once you read through it again and you realize the foreshadowing that Jade was going to sacrifice, was contemplating and thinking of killing herself for a while in the story. You just never notice it until it actually happens, because it's just so subtly well done. Like the fact that when Connie's skin starts getting mottled with like the spots of corruption, and Jade is immediately able to count like how many. Okay, turn your arm over. Oh, it's 40. It's 42. Yeah. So she's immediately like cottoning onto the fact that Connie's slowly being corrupted, or even with the music, where Connie and Jade are trying to work together. It's like, we're going to work on this composition for this song based on a book that I like. I need you to think of like an attunement for like the symbolize the familiar. And Jade's immediate reaction was doing the song that was playing in Connie's mind while they're corrupted, which is a nice touch. Reading it the second time also made me realize one big flaw I actually have with the story now. It's the plan. That's like my one criticism when it came to the first story.
What is a man? A miserable...
Ignore that. To the first story, more or less came down to the renegade gems, which is flint and quartz. In my initial review of the story, I said that my biggest issue with the story was they weren't really that involved, despite the fact, the whole idea is that they're looking for a renegade gem, which turns out to be sapphire, which is one half of garnet. And they're not really that involved in the story. They're very much as a background element. Again, I was going under the assumption that the sequel was never going to be finished. And now that I actually read through the story with the assumption that the sequel's finished, I realize, yeah, they work perfectly fine. However, a new issue kind of comes from it, and that has to do with their plan. Now, more likely the sequel is actually going to go more depth of it, so I'm very likely could be wrong on this. I could completely just fuck up, fall on my face, eat egg, and I'm completely fine with that. If what I think is going to happen in Stranger I Am actually does happen, that is fine. So don't take this so take this with a grain of salt. The villain's entire plan revolves around wanting to get Sapphire for her precognition abilities. Yet Garnet's not really an important part of the story. If Garnet was more important to the story, it would make sense because everything is kind of presented that they're specifically hunting Jade because they're specific. Okay, we're here for Gem. We're here for every time they show up. It's usually around Johnny, Steven, Jade, and Connie. And reading through the story again, it made me realize why is Garnet not involved too heavily in the story. Pearl and Amethyst are more involved in the story. Granted, Amethyst is more used as gags. But Pearl, of course, is very important because of the main character is Connie, and she's still being taught by Jade, not Jade, Pearl, and thus it's really a weird writing decision to have Garnet in as little as the story as possible. I get, like I said, I get why they wanted Sapphire precognition and clairvoyance, and they're just feeding her possibilities and just simple questions to get something out of her. But it just reminded me that Garnet's just such a little part of the story. So if there's anything I would go back to change this time, I would just have a couple more moments with Garnet. Maybe just have a part where Connie and Garnet talk to each other just by themselves with no one around. It wouldn't add, again, I could be wrong because I'm currently at this point in time. Where am I in the sequel? I think chapter 9, chapter 6. I'm in chapter 6 of the sequel as of this recording, and I could be wrong, and I would be completely fine with being wrong in that because it seems like Garnet is possibly going to be more important in the story because of Shard and everything, and I'm fine with that. I'm completely fine with that. The author doesn't actually have to fully change this if I'm wrong. If Garnet doesn't really have a more important part in the second story, then I say just go back, add a scene, add a part or two where Garnet and Connie just talk. And Jay can snark her with the best with them, and that'd be it. I don't think you need to change Flint and Milky's role at all anymore. And I think overall, it's a really well done story. I still laughed at some parts. I still cried when Jade sacrificed herself. I still think that sacrifice is really well done. And I don't have anything more to say about that story. But we're going to go and review Stanger I Am. Now, here I am at Stanger I Am. This took 2 weeks to read through, mainly because of work. Where I'm working, I am nearly it's nearly season where I'm working. But that's beside the point. It took 2 weeks to get through the story. And what do I have to say about Stanger I Am? What a story. I'm almost tempted to just I don't know where to start with Stanger I Am without unhesitatingly saying it's better than Stranger in Me. It is much better than Stranger in Me. Stranger in Me is a good story. It's a great story. This beats it. You know what? No. You know what? I'm going to say it. This story is better off alone tier. I'm not even going to hide that fact. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to wait until the end because I wanted to get this out of the way. This is a better off alone tier story. Stranger in Me is good. It's great. However, that story is not a better off alone tier story. It's very close. It's goddamn close to being a better off alone tier story, but I don't think it's cool. I don't think it pushes it into that tier. This, on the other hand, is a better off alone tier story. It is insane. The jump in quality between Stranger in Me and Stranger I Am. It's just insane when you think about it. So, what is the story about? Well, Stranger I Am is actually a coming of age story. In essence, Stranger in Me deals with Connie having to deal with an unwanted passenger inside of her body, the Jade. This story chronologically takes place a week after the previous story ended, and it's Connie's journey to becoming a crystal gem. It's something that she wanted to be for a long time. Now, she kind of has to deal with this gem and through happenstance, the powers associated with Jade through Connie's body. Basically, if you didn't read Stranger in Me, at the end of the story, Jade realizes that Connie and her are basically about to be fully corrupted. Jade sacrifices herself in order to let Connie live. And also the sequel hook that Connie basically now has Jade's powers. What powers does Connie have now? Well, she has the power of wind, and she also has an eidetic memory. She can basically instant recall any sorts of information, provided she reads it. In universe, Connie calls it a book, booking it. In essence, reopens a book, she looks at the words, boom, instant knowledge, there you go. This story, plot-wise, has the instance of a coming-of-age story where Connie is having to struggle coping with Jade's death. Because think about it. Think about the circumstances Connie finds herself in at the end of Stranger in Me. Jade and Connie are slowly being corrupted. Connie is perfectly willing to sacrifice herself to let Jade have her freedom, willing to go through it. Jade, however, decides, no, I'm going to go through it because I would rather you have it. Connie's a kid. Connie is in this story, she's a full-on teenager, but you get the point. Connie more or less witnesses not only someone inside of her, but in essence, as a parent, throughout the very first dozen or so chapters, someone that was intrinsically connected to her. Like when they started getting corrupted, their minds were literally their body and minds were implied to slowly becoming one. And thus, when the corruption fully happens, then their minds will just fully merge. So Connie not only literally saw someone die in front of her eyes, that death also caused her to lose a big part of herself. Like almost like she lost like half of her body. And that leads to an overarching story thread about the 5 stages of grief. For those who don't know what the 5 stages of grief are, it's basically the common term used to describe someone who is coping over the loss of a loved one, whether it be a mother, a child, a pet, a best friend, any sort of trauma. And they go through these 5 stages before they eventually learn to let go of the grief and move on from the death. They are in order: depression, denial, which happens at the beginning of the story. Connie is steadfastly refusing to believe that Jade fully died, that the gemstone on her chest is still Jade's, and that she can find some way to bring her back to life. Anger throughout the early part of the chapters, when Connie goes to live with the crystal gems, she starts funneling all her anger issues, all her rage, doubt, uh, temperament, basically all her bad feeling anger into what is called a half hollow, which is what she believes it's what's powering the Jade to allow her to give her her powers, basically just forcing it out. Bargaining. Jade is realizing, oh, maybe Connie wants you to be a crystal gem. Maybe you're trying to be a gem and stuff, and you're trying to, and you're trying. What's the? Oh, I'm trying to figure out how to actually word it. Jade trying to, let her give her power, stuff like that. So basically, she's trying to rationalize Jade leaving and also leaving her the gem in order to justify, trying become a crystal gem. Depression, basically, when later in the story, Steven actually kind of sneaks into Connie's dreams. Basically, in Connie's dreams, there are these millions upon millions of books in the ocean that were written by Jade, and Connie's slowly grabbing each of them, and they're creating like massive stacks. Steven, being the inordinate idiot he is, but he's also a kid, decides to sneak in there without Connie's permission, knock over a bunch of books because, he's acting like a kid. He's trying to help Connie cope with the issues. Connie completely loses it, explodes on Steven because of what happened, and now she just becomes despondent and just realizing that she doesn't want to be a crystal gem. She doesn't want any of this anymore, and she just wants to go home. And then finally, in the final battle at the end of the story, we get the final place, which is acceptance. Connie finally realizing that Jade is gone forever, and Jade left her this gem, left her these powers, left her this responsibility, left her the ability to accomplish her dream, to join Steven and join the Crystal Gems, to help them save the world. Additionally, in terms of the plot, there's also the underlying threat of Shard, who is now a more prominent threat in this story. In the first story, they were basically like super background characters, which makes sense in that story because the entire conflict of Stranger and Me is the fact that now Connie's sharing a body and they have to try and cope and learn how to become friends. So it makes sense why the whole Shard thing wasn't really that big in the first story. However, a big part of the plot is along with Connie slowly going through the stages. She has to deal with the fact that the Shard and her forces are now slowly ramping up what they're trying to do, which is still kind of a big blank. And there's some answers that were given. Basically, Shard wants to revive Rose Diamond, which is Steven's mom, but it's like that's really all we really get. We don't know why she wants to rebuild a ship. We don't know why she wants the Crystal Heart. Well, we know why she wants the Crystal Heart because they're the power sources, which is obvious. We don't really know anything about Shard at the end of the story. We'll get the Shard when we get the Shard at the end. Just spoilers. But the main focus relationship to Connie with Shard's forces is Pyrite, this ultra buff gladiator who is actually a fusion between two regular Pyrites. Basically, the two Pyrites fuse turns into Super Pyrite, and they're constantly dogging on Connie the entire story. They actually fight a total of 4 times throughout the story. 5 if you count Stranger and Me. Pirate wins every single one except for the final fight. So there's a lot of stake in that final fight. And Pirate specifically is what is a driving factor in Connie slowly going through each phase. There is a part where they uh, Connie and Garnet go into a bunker where there's like this gigantic mutated wasp. That was a corrupted gem, and that also helped her move through the phases. But Pyrite is more or less the impetus for each phase kind of happening. Like, okay, Connie gets through from denial to bargaining, but then Pyrite causes the bargaining to go into denial, and then Pyrite and the gem get her to go into depression, and then the final fight has her get into acceptance. So there is a sort of catch can with the plot as like each plot tech like Connie's main character arc which is the more or less the main plot of the story. Connie learning to be a crystal gem and slowly learning acceptance that Jade's gone is constantly intercepted at times by Shard's plot. Based on the final story, The Stranger We Become, apparently Shard, like the entire Shard plotline, is going to take center stage. But that's going to be that when I get to it. Also, here's what Connie looks like in the story. She has a little origami sword. But this is her just completely just depressed and stuff and all that. I do think it is a excellent plot in telling a story of coming of age through the use of grief because everyone deals with grief differently. Like if say Greg passes away, Steven he'd probably take it differently from Connie. He'd probably take it even harder than Connie. I wouldn't. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Steven actually tries to commit suicide if his father dies. Because I think Steven's like the type of kid he would just unironically take death just so hard because he's lived his life around immortal gems. That's fine. And that's it. He just would be devastated at that. It's kind of funny when you think about it. But the overarching plot, I think, it's a very, very well crafted tale of someone coming to terms to someone she cared about death, especially in these unique circumstances. Like I said, Connie literally saw a person die in front of her eyes, and also when she left, she literally metaphorically lost half of herself. So it hit Connie super hard, really hard, that it took her such a long time in universe. Apparently, took place over the course of 2.5 months. So it took her quite a bit to kind of get used to kind of figure things out. I think on that front, Connie's story is done really well. There's not much more specifically in depth of the story because it's a story that is tied to a character arc. This is not a character arc that just happens to coincide with the plot. Just like Stranger and Me, in this story, the arc is the plot. It's just the Shard thing kind of just is kind of like the B plot now. I think it's done really well. Characters. I more or less I already talked about Connie, because again, her character arc is the plot, so not really much to go around with Connie. The gems, there's not really much to say about the crystal gems and Steven, mainly because those four, and all that entire group are written in character. The story also made me remind why I just fucking hate Steven as a character. I'm gonna go on a random tangent. I really don't like Steven. I get his whole thing is that he wants to redeem, like, he wants to talk things out. And I know he didn't really talk things, like, it's with some of the characters, it didn't get through, but it's just so annoying. Like, he's just so happy-go-lucky to, like, an overactive degree. I get that's I get he acts like that because he's a kid, but oh, it's just annoying. There's also a very specific character that really should not have been redeemed for like narrative sake. Seriously, what the fuck did they try? Did they have her redeemed? It's so annoying, so annoying. But they're written in character, so I can't complain too much about the characters. What I am going to talk about is Shard's forces. I like the fact that the story did flesh out Shard's forces a little bit more. We have Milky Quartz and Flint, who are more or less the goon squad. They're just like, they're there to get beaten up. That's more or less what their role is. Like, you think Flint, with like her power of fire, she's like super dangerous. And it's like, no, she just gets her ass whipped every time she shows up. She gets one lucky moment where she poofs Lapis Lazuli at the very end of the story, and she cheers like, ah! Did you see that shot, Milky? Come on, I did it. She's like happy she got a single moment. Oh, but it doesn't stop the fact that she literally spends 90% like outside of that one moment getting her ass whipped. I'm sorry, it's just so funny. Milky too. The difference between Flint and Milky is Milky's also a dumbass. Like, there's a couple chapters in the story where I got to. Yeah, like chapter 36 and chapter 37, where like Milky Quartz just randomly shows up in Beach City, and like she's like hiding. Umbrella's like, "We can see you." No, you can't. It's like, and then Steven goes like the Steven way, like befriending the person. It's like, "Hey, how you doing?" It's like, "Steven, what are you doing?" Shh. What's your name? It's like, "I'm not Milky." Okay, not Milky. Do you want to hang out? It's like, just can you tell me where your technology is? And they basically just humor Milky. And then Milky, of course, gets away with it, which leads to all of Shard's forces kind of just showing up at Peridot's farm and completely curb stomping them. It's such a funny dynamic too, especially since Stranger Me had them treat him more serious. Like, I get why they are treated more comedically in this story, mainly because for the most part, Milky and Flint's threat levels don't matter anymore. Like Flint's whole thing is fire. Okay, what's that gonna do when who can, I don't know, casually swim in lava? Pearl and Amethyst are pretty resistant to fire themselves. Steven has his shield, which means he's pretty protected from fire, although he could probably still feel the heat. And now Connie has the wind powers, which means she can just, I don't know, casually direct the fire anywhere but at her. It makes Flint pretty dang useless, in my opinion. And then Milky Quartz, yeah, she's big, strong, and she acts as a sensor, but she's also dumb as a brick. Like, that's actually apparent here and in the previous story. The only reason she gets away with, like, all of this chapter, next chapter, is because Steven is, like, an idiot, too, and he kind of just, oh, what's my first reaction to this? Make a friend! It's like, that's not gonna work. What? No, it'll work! Doesn't work. Oh. Told you it didn't work. It should... Your friends always make friends. That doesn't even make any sense. Get up! Stop talking! And then we get to Polaroid, which is a really more quirky character. She's another goofy character, but she's treated more seriously than Flint and Quartz, mainly because she's basically Shard's tech advisor. All of her technological stuff, all the parts that she needs for her big plan, Polaroid has to build the stuff from scratch. So she is treated more seriously, and she has this like magnetism or something like that. And then she gets into like a very goofy rivalry with Peridot. It's like I'm the smartest person. It's like no, I am. And like every time they meet, they just kind of slap, like metaphorically, just slap each other with like the wimp, like the wimpy slap hands sort of deal. And it's just, again, it's a very goofy thing that still at least makes sense for the character. The Shard's forces seem to be like mostly a bunch of goofballs, and then you have Pyrite, who is this super gladiator yet super serious warrior who is so bored with like always winning. It's like she sees Connie, a human, squaring up to her like, oh, this seems like an actual worthy challenge for me. And she like doesn't even take Connie serious for pretty much the entire time they meet. It's like Pirate is just like barely trying until like Connie actually shows up the wind power. It's like, oh yes, that's fine. Time to, oh, now I can actually try. And it just kicks Connie's ass 7 ways to Sunday 4 times over the course of the story. And it's only like during the 5th time where Steven and Connie fuse that they're actually able to beat her. And even then, Pirate was just kicking their asses still. Like, oh, okay, I can't win with one weapon because the entire story she has Rose Quartz's sword, and so now she uses both of them, and now she's just basically kicking both their asses. It's like, all right, there we go. Now I'm actually trying. And then there's also her like obsession with like fighting. It just like they never actually show her design here, but like she actually has a really cool design. She has like this metallic visor that hides her eyes because it's supposed to hide the fact that one of her eyes is actually a gem. In essence, supposed to hide the fact that she's a fusion. She has the cape where like her other gem is, where she can grab the double sided hat, and then she has a glittered cape that is covered in all the gem dust of all the gems she actually killed. So it's like, this is the person Connie has to try and get past in order to move on, because Pirate technically played a part in Jade's death because Pirate basically forced the corruption to actually accelerate, which eventually caused Jade to kill herself. So Connie basically, but partially blames Pirate for basically kickstarting all that, which causes a big part of whenever Connie was thinking of it, I need to beat Pirate for Jade. This more or less starts in the bargaining phase. So it's like Connie believes like, oh, Jade will be happy once Pirate is stopped. It's like I need to actually get better and beat Pirate. It's a really cool character. I do like the fact that she's kind of goofy because it's like her entire character is just boiling down to the fact that she just has a one-sided rivalry with a 13-year-old girl, and like Connie's like even confused, like, why do you have such a rivalry at me? It's kind of funny in a more serious way, but it still works for Pirate. And then you have Zircon, and this is where one of my 2 very minor complaints come in. Zircon is a plot device. A very, very obvious plot device. And I don't like that. Mainly because every single other character, they have their definite role. They have a defined role in Shard's group. Flint and Quartz, they're the comedic relief. Pearlwhite is the tech soldier, basically building all the tech. Pirate is the actual soldier who's meant to carry out Shard's wishes and basically defeat anyone that gets in their way. Zircon doesn't have anything. Zircon is really just there to get poofed during the battle after the Battle of the Barn ends. Then gets captured by the Crystal Gems. Then leads them to the Clarity Forge, where Shard is setting up, where Shard has everything being set up, and then get killed by Shard for what she is as a plot device. I do think it is done really well. It's just once you finish the story and you think and you look back on the whole thing, you realize, wait a minute, Zircon was just literally there just to set up the climax and nothing else. Why? It's just a very confusing moment for an otherwise really good story. It's like you couldn't find a single thing for Zircon to realistically do on Shard's behalf. You really just had her there to just set up the climax and set up Shard's first appearance to show how horrible a person she is. That is just, well, I mean, not bad. Just why did you make it so obvious? And then you have no, we're not going to talk about Shard yet. I do think this group is a really defined group of villains. I don't know where the story is going to go in the third story involving them, mainly because Pirate kind of got defused, and now you only have one pirate, and pirates were defined in this story as not being just more figurehead soldiers, like those soldiers who are just there for show, like the soldiers at the guards at Buckingham Palace. They're just there for show. They have a definite role. Sure, it's not one that is more obvious than the others, but they all fulfill their role really well. Grammar-wise, there is one grammar error. It was actually during the barn fight where Polarite is trying to launch over all the corn syrup bombs. Zircon actually grabs onto Polarite's wrist. However, yeah, it's right here in chapter 40. Basically, Zircon grabs Polarite's waist, but accidentally calls Polarite Pyrite. Pyrite's literally like a couple feet in front of her. I don't think Zircon will be able to grab onto her. But that's literally the only grammar error I saw, so just change that to Polarite. No, wait a minute. No, wait. Yeah, wrong Pyrite right here. Right here. I just realized I highlighted the wrong Pyrite. This one. Just switch that to Polarite again. Pacing. I do think the pacing is really well done. I have no complaints about that. I like the sentence structure, minus one thing. I think it's overall really well done. I think that's actually about it. So, would I recommend this story? Yes, 100 times yes. I already recommended Stranger in Me. That's still a great story. Like I said at the beginning of this specific review, Stranger in Me, not a Better Off Alone tier story. Stranger I Am is a Better Off Alone story. In terms of in terms of things I would want to fix, two things. One, of course, is give Zircon a defined role. Just try to hide the fact better that she is a plot device. Just help. You have the whole the whole spy thing, where Milky Quartz kind of just, pretends to be friendly with them. Just replace that with Zircon. You would have to delete Zircon's appearance in every other part of the story up to here. But you could literally just have Zircon as like, oh, they haven't met Zircon, so why not? Like, it would give her something to do that's more than just kind of just standing on the sidelines, just being there. So yeah, it's just something. The other thing is this very stupid song that happens during the final fight between Pyrite and Stephanie. Where do you start with this? So, for context of this part, it's the final fight. Pyrite's holding her own against both Steven and Connie. Connie tries to put her ground to tell Steven, go get one of the crystal gems, so that way they can fuse with you, so that way you actually have a chance against Pyrite. Steven, however, makes a shield, a more powerful shield around her, that holds Pyrite back long enough for Steven to kind of finally get through to Connie. It's like, Jade is gone. She's never coming back. She left that gem for you. That is not Jade's gem anymore. That is your gem. Own the fact that you are a Jade now. And, of course, Connie finally enters acceptance over Jade's loss. They fuse into Stephanie, and honestly, I knew for a fact that whatever the final fight was going to happen in the story, it was going to go one of two ways. It was either going to be a draw, where Connie and Pyrite kind of just become dead even, and the rivalry would be settled in the final story, or it'd be a curb stop, because again, Pyrite basically kicked Connie's ass 4 times beforehand. In this story, it's the latter. The problem is, for some odd reason, the author decided to put a song. Why? I'm legitimately asking, why put this? For one thing, it's completely interrupting a legitimately cathartic moment. Again, Pyrite's basically had Connie's number the entire story. So now Connie has a equalizing factor in Stephanie, and basically gonna curb stomp her ass. It should be a cathartic moment. Except the catharsis is completely kind of cut off by random lyrics just happening every paragraph or two. Why does this exist? And there's also the fact that, again, as I said multiple times, songs do not usually work in literature. They usually don't. It's very rare that a song would work. It's even worse here because it's like apparently no one's singing it. Like, this is not like, apparently no one is singing the song. It's just for us, the reader. This is not singing 1,000 miles in Total Alternate Island. Like, this is how you add a song perfectly into a story. This is not the Ballad of Prismatic Knights from Contest of Champions. These are 2 examples of how to incorporate music perfectly into a story without it coming off as really cheesy or forced, or even just flat out cringe. This is just forced. It is just 10 times worse when you realize no one is singing this. It's only for the people who are reading it. Why? It's kind of funny when you think about it. It's like, oh, okay, here's a song for the people who watch this stuff, who read. Why? So So honestly, I would just say get rid of this. Just get rid of this. You don't have to. But just get rid of it, please. It's just so cringe. So, what about my favorite part? Shard. Her introduction. Oh my fucking god! I know, I don't want to bring, like kick the author when he's down. But this introduction sold me on Shard as a villain more than Antonio did in all of Fallen Kingdom. That's just honestly the only reason I'm bringing Fallen Kingdom into this is because based on like this one introductory and like the information I got from the story, Shard seems to be a revolutionary villain just like Antonio. It's just unlike Antonio, Shard seems to be living in the past rather than Antonio who's basically trying to change it for the future, past or future. It's such a weird thing. So in this story, I mean at this part, they defeated Pyrite. Stephanie basically orders Zircon, you're going to take us to Shard because they find out that Shard is actually here. The rest of the crystal gems, they're distracted, completely hose mad levels of pissed because apparently there was like a simulacrum of rose quartz specifically to piss them off. So that was just Zircon, Connie, and Steven. They go to the top floor. They say, Shard. Stephanie looked up. Oh, and then randomly, they just defuse. So we have some like full on Zeha stops. It's like, I'm sorry, fucking what? So you're telling me that for some reason the prompt for the time just disappeared. Sorry about that. For some reason, Connie is even just unfused, just bomb out of nowhere. So it's like, what happened? It's just they look up, they defuse. That is ominous. And then we actually get a full-on look and the proper introduction of Shard. Is 10-foot tall, extremely humanoid looking Shard. Like, this is what she looks like. This just looks terrifying. Because this is like the crystal gems. Their whole thing is the fact that they're meant to be they're meant to look far enough from humans to kind of get that otherworldly feel. Shard is just terrifying because she looks so terrifyingly like a human. A ball's human, but a human nonetheless, and that just makes it just burns into your mind. A 10-foot tall this, and she's just translucent. The door to the spaceship is behind her, so there's like a bright light kind of surrounding her, and she has like black eyes, just pitch black eyes, just staring at them. And whatever she did, defused Steven and Connie just instantly. Whoever this Shard just is completely apathetic and just like, oh, okay. Do you have the gear ready, Polaroid? Yes, I got what I can. Very well, let's go. And she's basically just willing to just let them go. Just let them go. Like, fine. Like, I think it's not me or anything. Steven tries, of course. He does the Steven thing. Amber just, spoiler. The Shard's actual name is Amber. Shard basically like just doesn't give a fuck. Basically, they're trying to. Everyone's kind of asked Shard, like, "Can you do something?" It's like, eh, eh, eh. Then Shard actually gets a reaction when they kind of inadvertently reveal that Zircon led them to her. So now, still mostly apathetic, Shard turns around, storms up to Zircon, and it's like, well, no, they tricked me. She raises her foot, steps on Zircon. And you think, oh, well, that Zircon's probably just going to be poofed, which does happen. And then this happens. She just casually kills Zircon. With zero change in reaction. Just implied to be a blank look. But you can, like, the wording reveals that she's pissed. But the fact that she still has that blank look to her just gives up such terrifying vibes. Just how it's executed. And then it's like, well, we're still not trying to stop you. It's like, and then she kind of turns slightly goofy. It's like, yes, nothing will threaten what I create here. I will store what is broken. I will have order. I will have perfection. I will have champagne. Then you're thinking, what the hell is she talking about champagne? And then you realize you go back up, which is what I did, and looked at her design again. She's kind of dressed like she's in like a nightgown and slippers. So she kind of inadvertently she kind of has like a goofy look to her. So this is simultaneously goofy and like terrifying. The more you think about it, it's like it's supposed to be clashing, but it's like weirdly working when it comes to like, oh, the where is it? Oh yeah, the champagne thing. It's like, oh, she like pulls up her hand and like this weird liquid kind of forms out of her hand and turns into like a golden ball, which is like a running threat throughout this entire story. Like they had these golden balls that they would drop, and it would go around and basically absorb the material around it and turn into like this golem which retains the memories of like a random gem. Like it had bauxite, it had rose quartz, which is what the crystal gems were fighting, and it basically just repeats it in like a madness mantra, and it's like, oh, it's even like shows the foreshadowing from earlier. Shard is pleased with your work here. In spite of your resistance you encountered, she even said something personally to help deter encounters from those wartime relics. Sent them personally. Never had Connie thought to take the word so literally. And then Shard just tosses the orb. It turns into like a Tristine. No idea what the kind of gem that is. I don't want to know. And then basically gets curb stomped by Alexandrite that shows up through the ceiling or through the floor, and then defuses before the time because they ran out of time, and that gives Shard and the troops enough time to get out of there. It's this moment, just the presentation of Shard is just it's on one hand it's very goofy because you just kind of realize what she looks like, and what she's dressed in is like just slippers and a sleeping gown. At least that's how it's described. I'm pretty sure the author didn't mean to describe it like that. It just kind of inadvertently how it comes off as, but also so monstrously terrifying, and also gives you so many questions. How did Stephanie unfuse? Because with Alexandrite, they ran out of time, the whole diffusion. Stephanie, however, just looks up and then just randomly defuses. There's no explanation, it just happens. So, what happened with that? Why is Shard translucent? What kind of connection past being, because spoiler at the end of the story, it's revealed that Amber was actually Jade's teacher, and basically because Was planning on being a chronicler. Amber was going to be Jade's teacher to teach her how to be a chronicler. So what is Shard's plan? What kind of deep connection will Shard have with Jade going into the third story? What kind of connection will Shard have with Jade? I mean, not Jade, with Connie, with the crystal gems, with rose quartz. What will they even be able to do anything? Like, what are her powers? Because it is implied that Amber is a fusion of some kind because she has the gem on her chest, where coincidentally where it's implied that where Connie has her jade, same area, and also has a gem on the back of her hand. So she's a fusion of some kind. No idea what it is, but it's just implied that she's some sort of fusion. What is her end goal? What are her motivation? What is her backstory? This one moment just rose so many questions from a terrifying visage, and that just it was so well, like, it's such a terrifying moment in the story of just showcasing showing how effective an introduction to a villain should be and can be, especially when you try and give us so many hints of what the fuck is going on with this character. It's made me interested in wanting to see the third story. Like, if the author finishes that last story, I'm reviewing that story. No shot. I honestly need to know what is up with Shard. I don't like it. It has tickled my brain on wanting to see exactly what is going on, like what's going to happen in the story. I think that's a really, really well done introduction and easily the best part of the story. So that is the Stranger I Am. I thank you, Cyber Wraith, for a very well done story. I will see you next time. This has been Dark Symphony 777, and